I'm Chris Gatens. I'm a retired DEP employee. I've worked there for 30 years. I'm also on the board of the Kanawha State Forest Foundation. I'm the board member. And I wanted to show you a couple flowers today and maybe some trees. But we'll kind of come down on the ground level here. This little plant here, it's purple and has 3 fused petals. And this is called Mazus. And it's introduced from Asia. And Mazus reptans actually, but you can see it's on the ground, covering the ground here. It has a little leaf and it forms a ground cover, but this is native to the Himalayas, believe it or not. And there seems to be a lot of it in state parks for some reason. But very showy thing. It's very hardy. It blooms for probably a couple months, and I've seen it out here in late March actually, so it's been blooming for a while. Hello again. I wanted to point out a couple wildflowers that are still here, and they're blooming a little bit later, and a lot of the spring flowers are gone, but these have been on the edge of the road here. And a couple things you see that are really common. And this is a composite, and it has purple fringed petals there. Composites have disc flowers and ray flowers, but this is one of our earlier spring composites. And this is Philadelphia Fleabane. There are several Fleabanes, several things in this genus, but this one in particular is real common, and it grows along the edge of your yard where the mower can't get to it. And then beside it is this plant, and this is called the Lyreleaf sage. Lyreleaf sage, and it's also called wild sage. It's a salvia. And you can see the foliage here. Sometimes it's green like this at the base of the plant, and then there's some purple veins there, and also you'll find the foliage that's purple, and it's all through the landscape here. These are more of the sages, and real common in the spring, and when it let go, it's quite from the mower, it's quite a pretty plant. And there is a domestic salvia. This is a salvia. There's a domestic one that's raised in greenhouses and things that people use to plant. But this is our native one. This is these are 2 native plants. I wanted to point out a tree here that's very tropical looking, and this is one of our native magnolias. This is umbrella magnolia. And if you can see how big the leaves are, this is one of the biggest leaf plants that we have. And quite tropical looking, like something you would see in South America. And it has, these are deciduous, and in West Virginia we have 3 species that are deciduous, 3 magnolias. This one here is common along the Coal River, the Gully River, the New River, a lot of the lowland streams. It likes to occur along the stream banks where it's moist and provides a shade. It has a large leaf, as you can tell. That leaf must be 2 feet long, every bit of it. And typically it's found like this, but sometimes the trees will get to be be a foot in diameter and can get up to about 30 feet tall. I wanted to point out a tree that we normally see at Cedar Lakes. It's pretty common there, and it's actually pretty common in a lot of the counties in the state. In places, one reason for that is the deer, where there's a deer population. The deer do not eat this, and so as a result it continues to grow and form groves and things. But this is our tree, and this is the pawpaw. And also we were always told that this was called the West Virginia banana, and I don't really care for the fruit, but this time of year we can see a bloom, and it's really showy and really spectacular. And one thing about these trees, they're just about quit blooming, but we were able to see that, is that there'll be a lot of bloom on there, but very few of these flowers get fertilized, and they're fertilized by flies actually. And for some reason, only a few of them will grow to maturity to where there's a fruit, and we can see that right here. This is actually going to be a fruit, but whether it makes it or not might fall off. That one looks a little loose, but sometimes the weather, they don't stay on there, they're not very strong, and they'll fall off. But that one's going to be a fruit if it stays on there, and the same with this one. But normally they do fall off, and there ends up not being very many fruits at all. Here's another one. Now this time of year, the leaves are about half size. As you can see, they're just they're kind of tiny, but they'll grow to be another third or another half larger than this. And it forms a pretty dense, some dense foliage. And you can see there's a bunch of them here. So this is what you would call a pawpaw patch. This is one of our spring violets. It blooms a little bit later, and actually being a violet, it's white. And there are a lot of violets that are not violet. They're actually white, and then we have about 3 or 4 that are yellow. And this is the striped violet, and it's growing out of here on the edge of the yard. And you can see in the bottom petal, this is Viola striata, hence the name striped. And it has these little lines that are purple and they're striped. And it gets to be pretty tall, but there are others that are taller. And this one just has to be on the edge over here where it can get to grow in full length. But it has the violet is actually, the flower is actually borne on the stem. And that's what's called a stemmed violet. And it's actually borne up here on the stem, where there are others that the flowers are born from the base. But has a little tiny, little yellow eye down in there. It's kind of hard to see, but there it is, kind of yellowish orange. And so that's the striped violet. I wanted to point out this little plant. It's common on the edge of the woods. This forest is loaded with it here, but very showy. And if I grab down here at the base, I can tell that it has a square stem. So that tells me that it's probably a mint, and it's in the mint family. Just some of the basic things, but it has this little lip flower, very showy. This is Meehania, spelled M-E-E-H-A-N-I-A, Meehania. It has a cordate leaf, so it's Meehania cordata. Meehania is named after Thomas Meehan. He was an Irish botanist, actually. That's where the name comes from. But it just grows on the ground, it grows in the shade, and it just covers the forest floor here in places. And it's just about, this one's fully open, but you can see there's some over in here that are also about to open, but not quite yet. But very beautiful thing. So that's what greets us in the first part of June, the Meehania. Hope you enjoyed the presentation today. Just an introduction to some of the common plants. Some of them are native, some of them are non-native, but they're part of our flora in West Virginia and what's in Kanawha State Forest. There are books out there available that talk about spring and summer flowers. You just have to go online and look at West Virginia flora, and there are some available textbooks and things, pocket guides for that type thing. And have a good day.